actually clears out the election a little bit.
That ends our crossfire time.
Oh,
We now have a 3-minute period in which the judges have been able to pass questions down to our moderator, Dr. O'Connor, and she will now ask some of those questions with a 3-minute period.
Dan's ready. So I'll start. Fred, as an alternative to the electoral college, would you substitute national voting as a whole for each state having a popular vote?
well, I believe that the votes should still be tallied in the same fashion they are today. The state should collect the votes, but I don't, that way it provides an organized system, but I do believe that it's important that it is directly the popular vote in that way.
As a follow-up, though, this is my question. Given technology as we use it, is there a need really for organizations to say so?
Yes, I mean, as we saw in the Florida election, I mean, votes do get messed up, and so if we did it at a national scale, it would be a bit difficult. So I just like to, so each state will submit their votes, but instead of submitting their electoral votes fully for one candidate, they can split a divided popular vote.
Okay, and for the negative, it is clearly possible from our last presidential election for the winner of the electoral college to lose the popular vote for the Bush. Do you view this as a positive, negative, or neutral?
I view it as a neutral thing because although the voice of the American people, although Gore did maintain a popular vote, in the meantime, this is one of the ramifications of the electoral college, so to say. But in the meantime, we're still preserving federalism. So, on one hand, we're not necessarily getting that direct democracy or ensuring that all the voice of the American people is heard. But in the meantime, in exchange for that, we're preserving federalism and state rights.
Okay, Dave has asked a question of the negative. Aren't the checks and balances of the legislature, the presidency, the Supreme Court sufficient without the electoral college?
I believe they are not, because all those are federal entities, and a lot of them do not directly act on states, although they have in the past. But we must come to the conclusion is that when you have the electoral college, it's one of the few bastions left in federalism. Like, there's not a lot of political institutions right now that preserve federalism. However, the electoral college is one of them.
And another for the affirmative candidate. If you eliminate the electoral college, don't you eliminate the willingness of candidates to campaign in small states?
I don't think that's true necessarily, because although they will be focused definitely on bigger states, and I can't deny that, it will be focused on bigger states and therefore more of the population, smaller states are not ignored at all because each state does have different state laws that correspond to federal laws, and therefore it is important to keep all of the states in mind, and candidates definitely need to do that because although the California and New York matters, I mean, you can't win an election just based on
From Dan, for the negative. If presidential elections, can't read the handwriting, are limited to a handful of swing states, how does that preserve federalism?
Well, if you look at federalism, a lot of these, we're not really focused on swing states, for example, but more states such as Wyoming that have such a small population that we need to ensure that those states still get their electoral votes. Although the electoral college may have where a couple of swing states would really decide the election because based on the balance of going one way or the other, we're still ensuring that the electoral votes in a state like Wyoming are still preserved.
Okay, and for the affirmative from Dan, were we to eliminate the electoral college, should winning candidates be required to have an absolute majority of popular votes to make him or her a legitimate winner?
Yes, I believe, well, obviously if there's a third-party candidate, then it won't be over 50%, but I do believe that they should have more votes than any other candidate in the popular vote.
And finally, from Beth, could each of you make a statement very briefly, over time, summarizing the place of voter turnout in your own district?
Of course. The Electoral College discourages voter turnout because in a blue state, they know that it's already going to go to Obama, and therefore they might as well not show up. Even if they're Democrat, their vote won't matter. If they're Republican, their vote won't matter, so why show up in the first place?
So my position is that underneath either a direct democracy or underneath an electoral college, we really don't see an increase in voter turnout from both entities. They're about neutral because what I've already argued about is that a lot of voter turnout depends on where the politician is actually campaigning. So underneath the Electoral College, they're only campaigning in these swing states, while in a direct democracy, they're only campaigning in these bigger states, just as California.
Thank you. We'll now turn it over to the affirmative for her closing statement of 3 minutes.
I only have 3 minutes, which is a lot less time than it seems, so I'm going to basically sum up this debate into what I summed it up before, but go into a little more. The electoral vote versus the popular vote. And before I say absolutely anything, I'd like to focus on just one thing that my opponent has said that I think is extremely important to this debate. Now, he said that the Electoral College, its goal is not to protect the right of the people, but to protect the right of the states. And I think it's really important to point out here that the government is supposed to be of, by, and for the people. So don't you think we should be promoting the people before we promote the states? Also, so I'd just like to go into his arguments on why the Electoral College is good and why these aren't true. Also, I'd like to point out that most of his arguments are about why the Electoral College preserves federalism, but not why it is important to preserve federalism. Now, although it may preserve federalism, why is that better than changing to a democracy? Why is this system better than a system in which is a democratic nation, every vote counts equally, and encourages people to show up to the polls? Now, he said that numerical equality doesn't really matter. However, isn't that exactly what's supposed to matter? Is that a person in California's vote counts just as much as someone in Wyoming, because they are an American citizen. And because they are an American, they are recorded the right to vote. Now, the right to vote has been an extreme, it doesn't happen very often in history. And so when it happens, let us make sure that it is really counting, and that every vote counts the same. And he said that it may change a little bit of the focus from smaller states to bigger states, and he may be right. It would shift the focus. No one would be ignored, but it would shift the focus, but that's a good thing. If a state is highly populated, that means they need a lot of jobs, that means they need a lot of protection, and therefore it makes sense that a candidate spends most of its resources in that area. That doesn't mean all of it, that doesn't mean all the resources, but it does mean that higher population should have higher say. Now, I'd like to just briefly cover the issue of voter turnout and clarify what I mean by that. If you live in a blue state, your state's votes is predetermined. It doesn't matter what you vote in when you vote in the election. I hate to say that in a democracy, but it's true. And so therefore, it discourages people to show up to the polls, because no matter what they vote, their state is going to vote the same thing unless they live in one of those 11 states. But by creating a democracy truly by the people, it not only encourages people to show up to the polls, but to educate themselves about what they're about to vote for, because they know that it is their decision, in their hands, not in their state electors' hands. Let our elections be decided by our friends and our family and our neighbors, not our electors. Thank you.
So the main issue of what today's debate really comes down to is numerical equality of democracy or preserving states' rights and federalism. I, as a negation, have been arguing throughout today's debate that preserving states' rights and ensuring that the majority does not become a tyranny of the minority is one of the major impacts of big travel. So right off the bat in her last speech, my opponent basically misconstrued one of my points. She talked about how I'm basically arguing that we need to protect the rights of the states over the people. She's completely misconstrued my point for a couple of main reasons. Number one, what I'm not arguing for is that the rights of the people should not even be prevalent. What I'm arguing for is that in the electoral process, we still need to have some voice from the states, because the states do preserve federalism and ensure a balanced government. But in the Electoral College itself, we still ensure that the voice of the American people is heard and the right of the American people to vote is still heard, because most of the times the president is elected based on is elected based on a popular result. There's only been about 4 times in history where the president is not elected by the majority of people. And she also talked about why I haven't articulated why federalism is necessarily beneficial. However, if you look at the major impacts I've derived off federalism, it's number one, individual liberty, number two, the promotion of democracy and status, and number three, better voter turnout. So I have proven in today's round why federalism is also important, but we also have to look to the idea of basically the majority oppressing the minority. So if you have a majority oppressing the minority, as she's actually articulating for, you prevent states such as Wyoming from actually getting their voice heard. Instead, you're ensuring that bigger states such as California and New York basically dominate those smaller states. And when we look at her examples, or what she basically bases it on, is this whole idea of numerical equality, and that basically some states have more influence on the election by others. So although in terms of numerical equality, when the math actually is done, yes, voters from Wyoming do have a little bit more of an influence on the election compared to California, but what she's not doing is she's not observing the bigger picture of everything, or the bigger scope of the electoral college, which is that California, these bigger states, clearly have more electoral votes compared to these smaller states. So although she's basically trying to argue numerical equality, it doesn't even have that much impact in today's round. So although that voters in Wyoming may have a little bit more influence on the electoral college itself, we still preserve federalism and we still prevent that tyranny of the majority. If we implement a direct democracy, we're ensuring that a tyranny of the majority is obviously going to be set because politicians will be inclined to campaign in those bigger states. They're not going to be inclined at all to participate in the smaller states, such as those battleground states, which are not necessarily those such as California. There are these smaller states that do have some electoral votes. So because the negation of today's round preserves federalism and preserves a tyranny of the majority, it should be a clear vote for the negation. Thank you.